So this is a Pronto, Habana Pronto, or just Pronto, I guess, Habana, Cuba. This is a pre-embargo Cuban cigar gifted to us by Dave the Dude, who smokes all kinds of insane, wonderful stuff. So I'm gonna go ahead and take this out of the cello. We're gonna see what this looks like. So we've all seen yellow cello. In case you're ever wondering what 75-year-old cellophane looks like, that's it. It's roughly the same level of yellow as the dial here. Just a couple of small flakes came off here. See if I can get as close as possible and give you an idea of what that wrapper looks like, how yellow the label has become. You can see this is most likely, I believe, a machine-made cigar, not really high-level torsador type construction. Let's see if we can get a little bit of a better look at what the bunch or roll looks like. There you go. That's nice and sharp. So that's what we're looking at there. So Dave has become known for this, and I've never done it before, but he swears by it and does it with every one of his cigars that are 20 plus years old. 2001, 2002, 2003, 2004, 2005. Okay, there it is. We've done it. We've moistened the outside wrapper leaf, and there really isn't any that has gotten into the cigar itself. It's a little darker. It's hopefully we'll still smoke well. All right, we'll give it a shot. Okay, so we're outside. We're getting ready to cut and light. The running under the tap for 5 seconds literally happened less than 5 minutes ago. The wrapper is it feels almost completely dry. It doesn't really feel moist at all. So the amount of water that gets on or even in the wrapper leaf of the cigar in 5 seconds, I mean, it has a super sheeting action, and most of the water just goes right off. So that allays a lot of my concerns over any potential damage, obviously, to the wrapper leaf. I don't think the people who are doing this, I don't think it would be espousing it if they thought you were going to ruin a perfectly good 60-year-old, 70-year-old cigar. So I'm going to go ahead and cut and light this, and we'll see where we're at. Okay. Sorry about being almost completely in shadow here. It's below 70 degrees here in Los Angeles, so we have to bundle up, especially if you have been here for almost 20 years and you're a complete wimp now, even though you grew up in New Hampshire. Anyway, it took to the flame like it had been waiting almost 80 years to do so, 60 to 80, I guess, depending on when you think it's from. By the way, if anybody knows more about these Pronto, it probably was a nickel cigar, or maybe even 5 for a nickel when it came out. If anybody knows anything about them, let me know. We're all wondering how it tastes. For a cigar that was very likely cheapo when it was made, and who knows how it's been cared for, what the provenance of the cigar, how many times it's been in a humidor, been out of a humidor, and dried out before tonight it finally, meets its fate. And being probably a machine-made cigar, I'm guessing. Really interesting flavor. And it is not spent. It's not done. It's still doing its thing, being a tasty, smokable cigar. And I've never smoked a cigar this old. This is the oldest cigar that I've smoked, probably plus 50 years. Absolutely no bite in the nose. Like, I've smoked cigars that are 20 years old, Cuban cigars, and you know, the smoothness that begins to hit in the 3 to 4 year age range is exponentially improved on something that's 20 years old, and something as old as this. There's absolutely there's not the slightest tingle on the retrohale blowing the smoke out through the nose. Nothing. What I am getting is this incredible, slightly acrid sweetness. Almost, it doesn't taste like balsamic vinegar, but it is not unlike a balsamic vinegar type of taste. It's as though there's a thickness to the smoke that I really, really didn't expect in a cigar this old. You know, sometimes you'll smoke a cigar and the smoke is almost greasy. This has that element to it. I didn't expect it to be this sweet. There definitely, it is a little bit of harshness. And again, who knows whether that harshness is something that was in the cigar to begin with, or something that developed because it's, you know, well past the time when it was ever meant to be smoked. I mean, this cigar was meant to be bought in the 40s and taken out of the box, and somebody bite the top off and light it and smoke it. This cigar should have been dead a long time ago. But instead, it's here with us tonight. It's interesting because very, very quickly the flavor is changing, and I attribute this to the surprisingly long finish that the smoke has on the tongue, particularly on the back of the tongue. There is a lot of flavor there, and it is laying down this foundation of body on the tongue. And the more you smoke it, you can see we're at more than half an inch in now into this 5.5 inch cigar. By the way, it is essentially a box pressed Corona, small Corona maybe. It's not really to the petite Corona size. Corona is about where I would put it. Flavor-wise, very weirdly banana, in addition to some cedar and hay. But that's where that sweetness is kind of hitting me, halfway between, sort of an unripe banana and a banana peel sort of an aroma. And some hardwood resin in the middle of the tongue, especially. It's interesting to smoke a cigar so old because it almost feels like you're doing a chemistry experiment on yourself, on your mouth and on your sinus. Because geez, who knows? Who knows what's in here, what went in here? Hopefully just nothing but, at the time, mediocre to great Cuban cigar tobacco. I wish I had more of a story to go with this cigar, because certainly the people who picked this tobacco are almost certainly dead. People who ran the machine, people who came up with this name and this design, people who sold it. I mean, it's old enough where if you were mature at the time that all that happened, then, 75 years later, you're very likely not around. So it's definitely a piece of history. It has been a piece of living organic history, changing and fermenting over time, and now it's at its end tonight, right here. So I'm gonna keep smoking this. I'm trying to get about to the halfway point and then check back in. Okay, we're back, and we are just about at the halfway point, and I came back in a little sooner than I anticipated that I would, mainly because this has been such an amusing smoking experience. I realized about 5 minutes ago that my imagination was really firing because of the age of the cigar and the fact that it's pre-embargo, and talking obviously about the people who must have made it and sold it, and the person who first bought it, I guess, too. I think we all, those of us who pay attention to cigar reviews, particularly new cigar reviews, but sometimes other kinds, we all know one or two reviewers whose imaginations are very active while they're on the tasting notes part of smoking the cigar. And this cigar has kind of gotten that part of my brain firing a little bit. I tasted papaya on this cigar. Again, I think the idea of tasting something as delicate as a fruit flavor on a cigar with this kind of age just came completely out of left field for me. Banana, papaya. I expected hay. I expected it to be dead. I expected maybe some cedar and some basic wood type notes. I didn't expect any kind of barnyard, and that hasn't happened. There's been a little more vegetal. I didn't really think it would be sweet at all. And I certainly didn't expect it to have a long finish. Another thing that I realized as I was trying to wait, and I think it helps a lot while you're smoking a cigar to really get the full effect of it, to take small puffs off of it, little tiny sips of smoke, if you will, and then take a couple of really good ones to hold it in your mouth, hold the smoke in your mouth, to also definitely retrohale it, because something like 90% of the flavor is that you're going to smoke or taste in a cigar is going to be in the nose. Mouth can only excuse me, taste about 5 different things, and banana is not one of them. That's in your nose. I think that it's important to also let a cigar rest for a while before you start smoking it again, and then at sometimes don't let it rest. Take a puff, and 15 or 20 seconds later take another puff. Sometimes let it sit for almost so long that it goes out, like we've been doing right now. And then see what you get out of it. See how it's different. See how it changes. See how it drops on your coat. I don't know about you, I've been doing this so much lately. I've had more ash on my body lately than I've had in any ashtray. I don't know what's going on. I feel distracted or whatever. No big deal. We'll get rid of it. But getting back to the flavor, I realized that when I was taking one of those long pauses in between and talking about that long finish and that coating that this cigar is putting on the tongue, and it made me think of sarsaparilla or root beer, or there's this soda that they sell that's made in Maine called Moxie that you may have heard of, that is disgusting to a lot of people, and I actually happen to really like it. I wondered if my imagination was running away with me, about if I was thinking of these old-timey type sodas because of the sweetness and because of the age of the cigar. If it were a new cigar, and if I were presented with this and it looked like a new cigar and I tasted exactly the same things, I wonder if I would have the same labels for those flavors. Who knows? It's almost gone out. So despite the fact that this cigar has been burning like an absolute champ, I want to get the full effect of it, so I'm going to go ahead and do a little relight. When you relight a cigar, I just did it on the grass because it's convenient and easy, but get rid of the ash that's on the end of the cigar. You don't have to mash it down, but you don't want to be trying to light ash. The ash is already burnt. It's not going to light. So get rid of the ash and then do your relight, and you can do it very gently and very easily because the cigar has been toasted already by being smoked. It lit up in half a second, as you can see. So wish you could see that's the neighbor out walking her cat, Bogey. First cat that I've known, especially on a relatively busy residential street like this, that just follows its owner when she goes for a walk. She's got a dog too. Doc Holiday, who has probably been in one or two of these videos, I imagine. The candy, fruity sweetness continues on the cigar, past the halfway point now. We're creeping up on that band. By the way, whether it had anything to do with the method of running the cigar onto the faucet or not, I'm not sure how well you can see this, but the cut with the sort of crappy single blade guillotine cutter that I used is absolutely perfect and magnificent, so no worries there. That was one of those large puffs that I was talking about. I'm also going to try to purge. We've talked about purging before. It is the act of, after taking a puff or two of the cigar and while you're kind of letting it rest, blowing out and blowing the smoke out of the cigar rather than sucking it in. And what that does is the smoke that would normally be sitting inside the cigar while you're waiting and kind of soaking into the unburnt tobaccos doesn't. You blow that out and you get especially in your first puff back, you get a cleaner smoking experience. It is one of the things that it's not the easiest thing to remember to do, but I find it tremendously worthwhile. Let's go ahead and get a little further down and wrap this up. Coming back one last time here, we just have barely more than a nub. I've removed the label, which came off without even the tiniest piece of wrapper leaf stuck to it. It was just, that's how you make a cigar. Still in really terrific shape. The burn is not quite as razor sharp now because we're getting to the part here where the wrapper leaf is overlapping itself. Back when it was rolled, whether that was by man or machine or woman. And of course, as anyone would who doesn't get to smoke this old of a cigar very often, I've been really babying it over the last inch or two, and really wanting to make the most of it. Partly because of that, although after the first half inch or inch, there really hasn't been a change. It's not a terribly complex cigar. We did taste quite a few different things, but all kind of in the same range, woody and fruity. And then there's that kind of sarsaparilla, which goes along with the kind of general sweetness, and there's also been a general vegetal flavor, which to me always kind of tastes like a green bell pepper. But it's the sweetness that has gone from start to finish, or start to nearly finish at this point, and was surprising at the beginning and delightful here at the end. It's a little more intense, as you might imagine. I mean, most of the change in the flavor of a cigar between when you first light it and at this point in the cigar happens because it's had so much smoke go through, you know, this area of the cigar, this last inch. All of the smoke of the cigar has passed through that and absorbed into the tobaccos that are still in there and that are now being burned themselves. And so that accounts for most of the difference in increasing intensity in almost every cigar you'll ever smoke, from the first inch to the last. So we've talked a lot, we've tasted a lot, we've really enjoyed this cigar. Dave, again, thank you so much. This was really wonderful of you to share this with us, and I really appreciate it, and I'll hit you back soon. So let's wrap that up with the Cuban pre-embargo Pronto cigar.